What is going on, YouTube people? Northeast Ohio Cards and Comics here. Today, we are going to talk about buying and selling around championship games. When is the best time to exit from a player? Do you sell in the lead up to the big game, whether it's NBA championship or NFL championship? We're going to focus on those two since rings don't mean quite the same in Major League Baseball. Or are you better off to wait and sell it immediately after? Wait for the ring to be placed on the finger and for everyone to be going to Disney World. Then throw it up on eBay. The data is pretty interesting on this, and as in all things, we're looking at past data. That does not necessarily mean it will repeat in the future, but it's what we got to work with, so that is what we're going to look at today. I've pulled up a handful of different players, both NBA and NFL, and focus their charts and graphs in on the lead up to and very shortly after the actual championship event. We're going to look at winners. We're going to look at losers. That's what we're going to dive into today. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you want to check out market movers, link in the description down below. Let's lead off with LeBron. LeBron tops Chrome PSA 10 and 9. LeBron and the Lakers beat the Miami Heat back in October of 2020. As you can see here, the lead up to, now basketball is a little different because it's a series, so there's some momentum there. Now the Heat-Lakers series was pretty much controlled by the Lakers, so it was kind of clear-cut what was going to happen there. When we talk about the Bucks here, it's a little bit different. But as you can see, the lead up to it, his PSA 9 was going for about $4,000, give or take. 4,000 to 5,000, and then that game was on the 11th. It peaked up to $4,400. Prior to that, you could see multiple sales in the low fours, went up to 4,400, and then immediately came right back down again. 2 days later, it was 3.5K, did go back up to 3.7, and then slowly leveled right back out at 4, and then slowly started going down from there. PSA 10, very similar thing. In the lead up to, let's see, we see a $12,000 sale, a $12,000 sale, 11.4, a little outlier here. Right here is when they won on 10-11. There's no sales on 10-11. On 10-12, probably overnight, we see a 13-2 and a 13-8 on the 13th, and then it immediately starts going down again. 14th, going down, and then now the interesting thing here you see is it's actually lower. By the 16th, just 5 days later, it is back down to 9.7, which is lower than what it was leading up to the actual game. And they won. And this happens a lot, and people get really confused about why this happens. The player wins an NBA championship or an NFL championship, and the cards actually go down. Part of the problem is, now you don't see it as much here with LeBron, it has to do with number of sales, and usually the inventory floods the market. You'll see it on the other players, but that is typically what happens on a lot of these. But you can see LeBron, very quick pullback there. Let's pop over and look at Giannis. Now, Giannis is a little bit of a weird one. They kind of came on late in that series and then took control of it. And then once it looked like they were going to win, you could see Giannis's prices spike up. This was in the summer of 21. They clinched on 7-20. They won the game, which is right here. And you can see one sale higher than that. But the lead up to had a couple days before, his prices really shot up. They actually won here. It went up for another day and then started coming right back down again. And just a week later, it was already back down from the peak of 2.5 to 2.7K down to back almost to 2,000, about where it was trending on these upper spikes prior to the actual game. It dipped down a little bit because it didn't look like they were going to win against the Nets, and then pop back up. But very similar thing. They win, the event happens, and then it goes right back down again. Let's look at number of sales for this one. And what do you see here? Look at the big spike on the 20th when they actually won. Too much inventory hits the market. There's not enough buyers to meet supply, and then the prices begin to fall down from there. Everyone that has one ran out and bought one on the night of the championship, and then there's fewer people in the market that are looking to get into a Giannis card in this case. Let's switch gears and look at football because this is a more direct comparison to what we are about to have happen. And the reason that we're doing this video is because we now have our Super Bowl. It is Burrow, it is Stafford. Burrow is obviously getting a ton of love right now. His cards are flying, as we'll see. I have some Burrow stuff pulled up that we'll get to here in a minute. But Burrow stuff is just to the moon right now, and it is moving fast if you price it correctly. So if you have Burrow, should you be buying now with anticipation? Are people buying now with the anticipation to flip if they win the Super Bowl? Or are they just buying now because they're caught in Bengal fever and, you know, they're longtime Bengals fans and they want some Burrow action? I am sure that is part of it, but you would think those people would already have Burrow stuff. So it's just people buying, looking to capitalize on, basically place a bet on the Bengals winning and potentially making money on that. I would caution people for doing that as we look at this data. And we have multiple different examples, and some of them are very close overlaps to the Burrow situation. So here's Brady, and this is his last Super Bowl. They won on 2-7. So right here is where they won. So late that night, and then into the next day, you could see his card prices go up. You also see a clear run-up as they win the NFC Championship game, and then that wait period from the NFC Championship game to the Super Bowl, that 2-week wait period. So you can see they clinch, it flies up, kind of levels off, and then they win, it spikes back up again. But you see very quickly, they won on the 7th. This card was going for 13.6, and this is his Bowman-based paper. This isn't the Chrome. Got up to 13.6, and you can see down here the PSA 9 follows the same track. I was just curious. I wanted to make sure that it kind of crossed between the 10 and the 9. So they won here. It spiked up for one day, went up to 16, and then right back down to 14.5, then down to 12, then down to 10, then down to, or like 10.6, then down to 10 even, and then it went back up again for a few days, and then went back down again to 10. And once again, this is just looking at kind of like the couple weeks before and the couple weeks after the actual game. Obviously, Brady stuff long-term has done quite well, but even Brady was not immune to the post-Super Bowl dip. And they won. Once again, he won that game, and it went down. And once again, there was a very narrow... Essentially what I'm saying is that your window to sell into that hype is basically that night. So if you're looking to sell Burrow on a quick flip after they win the Super Bowl, if they win the Super Bowl, you need to move fast. You need to have auctions probably timed to end after the game and just risk it that they actually win. But this is the problem when you're flipping like this. If that's your goal, if that's what you're doing, is that your window is so narrow, one mistake can kill you. One buyer clicks, wins the auction and decides not to pay because maybe they lost the game or they see how quickly the market fell afterwards, and then they decide not to buy it, and then now you're stuck with it. Not that being stuck with a Burrow card is the worst thing in the world, but if you bought it specifically to quick flip, now you have money tied up into it, or you may have to take a slight loss on it. Let's look at Mahomes, because Mahomes to me is the interesting one, and this is his first Super Bowl back in 2020, because it's very similar to Burrow. Mahomes, they won on February 2nd, so right here. And once again, look at number of sales, look at where it peaks. So February 2nd is where they won, and you see a very similar track. This card was much lower here. You see they won the AFC Championship game. It spikes up. This is the hype period before the Super Bowl. And then they actually went on the 2nd. It pops up. So prior to, it was going for 1.3K. This is PSA 10 silver, by the way, going for 1.3K. So fun times there. He wins. It spikes up to 1.7, let's call it, for a day. And then it is immediately back down the next day to 1.4, then to basically 1.2, spikes up, spikes down, so on and so forth, eventually levels out at 1.2 before, the card market goes crazy. But the exact same thing played itself out. You have a very limited window on when to maximize this value, and it's basically the night of to maybe the day after. And then it immediately comes back down again. And this is his first Super Bowl win. This is a very similar narrative to what Burrow is about to go on. And then you see the same exact thing with the 9. It spikes on the 2nd and then immediately goes back down again. Let's look at his second one, because what happens if he loses? It's actually not that much different. This is last year's Super Bowl 2021 when they lost to the Buccaneers. Same thing, lead up, wins the AFC Championship game, 2-week period before, That game was on 2-7. We see it right here. They lose, and then on 2-7, it was 15K, and then it immediately dropped to 11.7 and immediately dropped to 10. So essentially, the loss causes a harder fall. That's the only real difference here. And you don't get the spike and then the fall back. You don't get the new floor. Immediately, the floor just falls out from under it instead of spiking up for a day and then dropping back down again. So there's definitely a lot of risk for the loss. Now, will we see this with Burrow? If Burrow loses, does his chart follow the same thing? I don't know, but my lean is going to be yes, because if it happened to Mahomes, and if it even happened to Brady, and it happened to Brady after they won, now long-term, obviously, different story. If you're willing to ride the waves, you're willing to ride the waves. The point of this is, if you were in this for the quick flip, if you just bought it like a couple weeks ago to sell it, you're probably better off to actually just sell before the event. If you got into it, you bought Burrow right before the playoffs started, you're probably into it for cheap, and you're not looking to hold Burrow long term, you just want to get out of it, you should probably be selling in the next 10 days, in my opinion. That's how I would handle it. Now, I have no Burrow, so you do whatever makes the most sense for you. But if I bought Burrow to quick flip, I would be selling a couple days before the Super Bowl. If not now, if you get a good, strong offer. Might you leave money on the table? Yes. Did you make a profit? If yes, then don't worry about it. Take the money and then make the next play. But you can see here, the decrease on the loss is, a lot more severe compared to the win. Prior to the game, the year before with Mahomes, he was going for 1.3. And then after the game, it settled out right basically at about 1.2. So only a $100 loss. So there was a very quick little maneuver there that you could have made to maximize your profit. On the loss side of things, it basically reverted slightly higher than what it was into the pre-clinch going to the Super Bowl AFC title game win. A couple more to look at here. Let's look at Burrow's current prices. This is his base prism and base optic, and this is a very funny graph. Chugs along, chugs along, chugs along to the moon. This is just over the last couple days, obviously. I'm recording this Monday night, so we really only have one night's worth of sales so far on this. I'll be curious to see what this looks like when we get to the end of the week, like when I do the next Sunday's video or this Sunday's video for the week in review. But you can see it spiking up very similar to what we've seen in the past. Here's Mahomes, AFC Championship game win, spike up. Mahomes, AFC Championship win, the spike up is back here. Very, very similar pattern. It's probably going to spike up. It's going to level out for the next 2 weeks. And then I would guess it's going to follow one of these two paths, depending on what happens. If they lose, it'll probably come back down to probably somewhere around in here. If they win, it'll spike up for a day or two and then probably pull back pretty close to around, wherever this number levels off. We don't really know yet. Like I said, we're only kind of 1 day into this, so we don't know what his new plateau is. But if they win, it'll probably spike for a day and then pull back to whatever the plateau number is. The interesting thing, so over the last 14 days, just going on a little sidetrack here, his base prism and base optic are actually up a ton. Base prism's up 70%, base optic is up 20%. There wasn't an optic sale quite registered yet in Market Movers. They run a day behind, so it gets a little bit tricky when you're looking at like super fresh stuff like this. So there's a day off on here. My guess is that it would also be up close to 70%. The silvers and the hollows aren't moving quite as fast. His optic hollow is up 32% the last 14, and the silver is up 20%. There was 2 sales last night of silvers that averaged out to $4,400. There was an auction that ended at $4,400, and someone did a best offer at $4,600. So those were the 2 that kind of leveled this up. Once again, I'll be curious to see what this looks like over the coming week or so as we move further into this off period between the 2 games. Just a quick look at Stafford as well. Same exact pattern. He was chugging along, won, and then has jumped up. This is his PSA 10 tops paper. Is up 79% over the last 2 weeks. Same thing with him. I have a feeling if they lose, the crash will be a lot harder. Just because it's Stafford. Stafford doesn't have the long-term viability of a Burrow or a Mahomes where it's like, oh shucks, I missed on this one, but that's okay. I've got a bunch more. Stafford's not that kind of player. He's a really good quarterback, but he's a lot older, and that Rams team is a lot more fragile for the long term versus the Bengals, who are on their come up. Now, if you're in Burrow for the long term, this really doesn't apply to you. If you were in Burrow for a flip, I personally, if it was me, once again, I own no Burrow cards, so I'm speaking not as a person put in this position, just hypotheticals. I would be looking to move Burrow over the next 10 days, personally, if it was me, and just limit the downside risk and not worry about the outcome of the game at that point. If you're planning on holding Burrow for 5 years because he's going to be the next Mahomes and win multiple championships or whatever, that's a different story. I would even be hesitant on that. I'm probably going to talk about this in a second video or a different video maybe later this week. There is so much fierce competition currently in the AFC, and football changes so quickly. I think people really get themselves into trouble baking all this stuff into these players, and you're seeing it with Mahomes. I want to kind of see what Mahomes prices do over the next couple weeks, or maybe the next week. But I kind of want to do a video about Mahomes prices versus some of the other quarterbacks and stuff, and where we sit in the current landscape. But if you're in Burrow for a quick flip, I believe this is now your window. Your window is opening right now and is basically going to run for about the next 10 to 12 days. And then, you're in the hands of whatever happens with the game. But as we've seen, unless you're very lucky and can capitalize on a sale the night that they win, you're just opening yourself up to the downside risk of that they lose for potentially making a couple extra $100 on the night of the game. Is that worth it to you? If yes, roll them bones. If no, you should probably be selling in the next week or so, and then just limit the downside risk. That's the way I like to approach cards, is limit the downside risk as much as possible. You might have a different method that works for you. If you do, sweet. That's all I have for you guys and girls. Curious for your thoughts and comments down below on this one. If you have Burrow, what are you doing with it? Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you holding? We will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.